Welcome to the Gladiator Guide, a show where I take a combat sports fighter and I give them an overall rating based on 5 career indicators, with the 5 being strength of resume, professional record, style effectiveness, damage taken, and career milestones. These 5 career indicators will help me judge the fighters overall as a collective. I will give each category a rating out of 20 overall, and once I've completed each one, the totals will be added together, ultimately to reveal said fighter's overall out of 100. To achieve this, I'll be walking you through the fighter's career, grading it as we go. After all of that's been completed, I'll add the fighter to the Gladiator game. Now that you're all caught up, if you enjoy the content, it'd mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like. I'm passionate about this channel, so the quality of my content will only go up from here. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to the Gladiator Guide. Leon "Rocky" Edwards began his career in mixed martial arts in April of 2010, getting fights on the regional scene in London. Just 1 year later, in June of 2011, Edwards would go pro, racking up 8 wins with just 1 DQ loss before getting the attention of the UFC. Leon would go on to debut at Fight Night 56, Shogun vs. OSP, where he would lose a split decision to Claudio Silva. Now 8-2, Leon would rebound with a record-breaking 8-second KO over Seth Basinski. This performance would shoot Leon into the eyes of the hardcore fans, and he would capitalize on the hype by winning a unanimous decision against his opponent, Powell Pollock. For his senior effort in the UFC, Leon would meet a man he was going to be linked to all the way from 2015 till present day in 2023, Kamaru Usman. The Nigerian Nightmare would prove too much for Rocky, out-wrestling him for 3 rounds to a unanimous decision. This would be the last time we would see Leon Edwards lose in the octagon. Now 10-3, Rocky would go undefeated in his next 12 fights, beating the likes of Vicente Luque, Brian Barberena, Donald Cerrone, Gunnar Nelson, Rafael dos Anjos, Nate Diaz, and his longtime rival Kamaru Usman twice. In the second fight, Usman was dominating 4 rounds to 1 before getting head kicked in the last minute of the fight in a moment that's become synonymous with MMA. The 2 welterweight kings would settle the score at UFC 286, where Rocky would go on to win almost every round of the fight, despite the blatant fouls, ending the trilogy 2-1 and defending his throne in the process. It seemed that his next challenge will be in the form of Chaos, Colby Chaos. Now over to the stat board. Let's start with grading the welterweight champ's record. 21-3 is solid, and arguably it should be 23-1 or 22-2. Regardless, only 2 losses in the promotion, with one being a split and the other one being to one of the best of all time, is not bad at all. Overall, I'm going to give Leon an 18 out of 10. 21-3 is a pretty record on paper, but it's obviously not perfect. Next, let's talk about his strength of resume. His great wins / names beaten are Usman twice, Nate Diaz, RDA, Luque, Gunnar, and Donald Cerrone. Only 2 of those fighters won a UFC championship, but 4 of them had competed for one. Usman was the pound-for-pound number 1 for over a year in the UFC, and Leon has now beaten him twice, which matters a lot for grading. I'm going to give Rock a 17 out of 20. I just have a feeling that he will do his best work as a champion, and that is yet to be seen. On to longevity and damage taken. Here's where Leon won't get as great of a score. He was hurt bad against Barberena, dropped against Claudio Silva, and blasted with a slap straight by Stockton's finest. Yeah, I pretty much lied when I said he'd be getting a lesser of a score. Man's never been finished. He's been hurt, but he always battles back, just like his name would suggest. That, coupled with him being 31 in his prime, I'm going to have to give Leon an 18 out of 20. I think he has solid longevity. Now on to Leon's style effectiveness. Leon is a master of all areas of the game, and he has some above average striking for sure. It's slick, it's nice. His grappling is about on par with the level of his division, maybe a little bit better than most. I mean, he did mount Usman and get the back in the second fight. Overall though, it's not like Leon uses a certain style to try to win every fight. It's more just like he goes in with his well-rounded skill set and fights on the fly. I mean, at least that's what it seems like. The only game planning he really seems to have is chopping at the legs and throwing that teep and that front kick up the center, which worked beautifully against Usman in this trilogy bout. So if he could always fight like how he did in this last fight moving forward, utilizing his kicks as much as he did, I think he's a really likely contender to go on breaking records with that belt. Genuinely he is, if he can keep fighting like that. He definitely needs to tune up his wrestling defense to remain the champion for longer than this one defense. But overall, his style is quite effective, man. I mean, he's only lost to Usman and that split I mentioned earlier to Claudio Silva. So I'm going to have to give his style effectiveness a 16 out of 20. It could definitely be better, but I don't think it could be worse than a 16 by any means. And now we can move on to his accolades, his career milestones, whatever you want to call it. I mean, okay, so let's look. He claimed the championship. He has an above double-digit win streak in the welterweight division. It's the longest active welterweight win streak currently. He's unbeaten in his last 12. He has an 8-second knockout. Those are like, you know, Leon's records in a nutshell. There's probably some other niche ones, but I'm not really here to break those down. It's more about the big career accolades. But he won the belt, he defended it, and he beat a pound-for-pound great while doing it. That already cements his legacy. And then you add on the fact that he was on a crazy win streak. He was getting the toughest road to the belt. I mean, I remember being a fan back in 2019 of Leon Edwards, and just being so frustrated with how slow his career was going and how much he was getting gypped at every point. So to see him here now, to see him getting the cheers in the crowd, it's really, really satisfying as a fan. I can only imagine what it's like to him. But just because of that, I'm going to have to give his accolades 17 out of 20. He has things he can do to get that perfect score, which pretty much only Jon Jones has on this series. He can make those steps. He's just going to need to improve his game, work on some shit here and there, and just keep climbing the legacy leaderboards. Now, if we tally up all of the scores total that Leon's gotten graded, he would have an 86 overall. He's sitting at an 86 overall, which is solid. In this series, I've only made 4 videos now, counting this one so far, and Jon Jones has gotten by far the highest score, and I even said in that video, I know it's weird because I'm starting this series out with a video about Jon Jones, but he is like the pinnacle. So you're going to see a lot of scores in the 70 to high 80s range. I don't think you'll really ever see people reaching 90 except for those top level greats. And Leon can be one of those people. And I honestly kind of hope he does become that because I've been a fan of him for a long time now. That's going to be all for today's Gladiator Guide. If you guys like the series, please give me a like, give me a sub if you're fucking with the content. I'm not going to keep much more of your time. I love y'all. Stay sexy.